I think when people think of Pompeii, they think it was just destroyed by the volcano. Yes, it was the eruption of the volcano that eventually caused the pyroclastic surge that swept over Pompeii and destroyed it for good. But also, they had to face the effects of a very extreme earthquake and a tidal wave that swept in from the Bay of Naples. No one rocks a heavy machine gun like Michelle Rodriguez. I've had that recurring dream since I was a child, and a lot of people have different versions of that same dream, where you're running away from something, and it's going kind of slowly, but it's catching up with you, and it will not stop, and you cannot get away from it. Those dreams are manifested in different ways, but most people have them. Pompeii will be PG-13. I think it has to have a level of violence and death in it because you've got a volcano exploding, but it will be another PG-13 movie. Pompeii is taught at schools in England, and, for a young boy, the combination of the Roman Empire and a volcano was irresistible. If you work with any new technology, you have to expect that it's going to be a little problematic. I'm a gamer, and I became obsessed with Resident Evil. I played the first 2 games back to back. It took me, like, 10 days. I disappeared from view, stayed in my apartment, didn't return anyone's calls. After 10 days, I emerged with 10 days worth of stubble and kind of bloodshot eyes going, I love this. We have to turn it into a movie. You can't just shoot your way out of every scenario in Resident Evil games. You have to use your intelligence. Having made a real 3D movie, you realize that, right from the production design, you're designing sets that complement the 3D. You're designing interactive elements, like rain or smoke. All this particulate matter in the air enhances the 3D. But if you're shooting in 2D, you don't know about that. The Monster Hunter world includes these huge deserts that make the Gobi Desert look like a sandbox, and they have ships that sail through the sand. One of my favorite countries in the world is Japan, and I've spent a huge amount of time there. I've always seen my movies in particular as being an immersive experience. I mean, with the technology at my disposal, I've always tried to make them as immersive an experience as possible. I don't think it would be possible for me to respect people like Ridley Scott or James Cameron more than I already do. They're gods of filmmaking. Franchises need to evolve or die. For Monster Hunter, we needed insane landscapes. TV is something that me and my wife watch a lot. I started in television in the UK, and I've always wanted to get back into TV. I think Lost didn't invent the flashback, obviously. It's been a cinematic tool. It's been around almost as long as cinema has. When you make people a lot of money, it gives you leverage in Hollywood. The attraction of watching a movie called Alien vs. Predator is you're anticipating, and the movie has to deliver battle scenes and fight scenes between the two creatures. A modern audience is capable of processing just so much information because they're used to visual media that's on overload. What I love about Monster Hunter is the incredibly beautiful, immersive world they've created. It's on the level of, like, Star Wars movie in terms of world creation. DVD ushered in this era when you had to have additional footage, deleted scenes, things like that. There was no call for that back when we were just doing VHS cassettes and laserdiscs. We are definitely modernizing The Three Musketeers without compromising the fun of shooting a period piece. But in our film, corsets and feathered hats don't take center stage. Our version is rich in eye-popping action, romance, and adventure. There's another game that Capcom, who make Resident Evil, have created called Monster Hunter, which is these amazing creatures in these fantastical realms. I'm very excited about that. My grandfather, who brought me up, was a coal miner. I visited the mines with him. I remember it vividly. It was horrible. I'm glad I didn't go into the family business. I think for the disaster to work and the drama to work, you really need to feel like you're really in that world. When I first came to Hollywood to make Mortal Kombat back in the day, there was this rule that female-led action movies don't work and American studios didn't want to make them. I'm staying in my wheelhouse, not making any romantic comedies in a hurry. I had played Mortal Kombat back in arcades in London, and I loved it. I came to the movies as a genuine fan of the intellectual property, and I think that counts for a lot. You are only as good as the movie you make. I really believe that. When Mortal Kombat came out, I was living in an apartment in the Venice Canals in LA. I didn't get paid a huge amount of money, so I had a nice apartment, but I couldn't afford to have it furnished. It was kind of like Robert De Niro's apartment in Heat. It looked like I was ready to walk away from it in 10 seconds, because there was nothing. My first movie that came out, Shopping, a British movie starring Jude Law and Sadie Frost, there were certain journalists in the UK who just eviscerated that movie. When you watch movies in Britain, the reaction when people hate a movie is, they just politely get up and leave at the end. And when they love a movie, they just politely get up and leave at the end. I've always felt that there's a lot of similarity between doing a comedy and doing a scary movie because jokes and scares are all about timing. If you give the punchline too early or too late, the joke falls flat. And it's the same with a scare. I'm a huge fan of Blu-ray. I think the picture and the sound quality is just such a massive improvement, and I think for movies like Event Horizon, where the image is a key part of that film, and also the sound, as well, in any scary movie is an important element. I think if you're watching Dumb and Dumber, I don't know whether you need to buy the Blu-ray of a comedy or something like that. But if you're watching Event Horizon, Death Race, Alien vs Predator, I think these movies are definitely enhanced by the Blu-ray experience. I've always, from my very first film, Shopping, which was Jude Law and Sadie Frost, I've always liked strong women characters in films. Apocalyptic movies tend to thrive when people are concerned about the state of the world. One of the things that struck me when I was a kid and I was learning about Pompeii was these figures that were frozen in the moments of their death. It is very powerful imagery, and it is very emotional and very evocative. Tolkien was influenced by South Africa when he was writing Lord of the Rings. It's really epic scenery. I grew up in the north of England, in Newcastle, which is where Hadrian's Wall starts on the east coast of England and then goes across to the west. When I was a kid, every field trip was to some Roman fort because it was cheap and free. I've been obsessed with Romans since I was a child. Being British, you see a lot of Australian movies and TV shows. True 3D is, you have to kind of originate the images in 3 dimensions. I really believe that, as filmmakers, we have a duty, which is, if we're asking people to pay a premium price for a 3D ticket, we have a duty to deliver a premium product. 3D is obviously not as suited to drama and romantic comedies, but for what I do, I felt that 3D was a very appropriate technology. The idea of being able to polish something for 9 months, it's the perfect way to hone your film. I'm a big gamer. Visit our website for more quotes, quoting.com.